Pokemon Home has given us a plethora of really strong metagame threats. So today, I want to go over some of these and show you guys how good some of these Pokemon can be by discussing and ranking every single Pokemon returning to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet from Pokemon Home. If you guys enjoyed this and you want to see some more content like this, of course, like and subscribe, and answer the comment question of the day. What Pokemon from Pokemon Home are you guys most excited to see? My personal favorite, honestly, I don't even know if I have a personal favorite, to be honest. There's so many of these that look really cool. Like, the Genies seem really cool. All the Hisuiemons. Alolan Muck is a huge favorite of mine. But I'm going to get into all of these and more down the tier list. With that said, though, let's start off with the tiers themselves. So we do have a couple different changes from our type tier list, and I'll get into that really quickly. Starting off with our S pluses, this did not change at all. Really, it's only the lower tiers that changed, like the D and below. But the S pluses are still going to be for the Pokemon that you genuinely hurt your team not running these because they're so fucking good. For the S tiers, they're still going to be for really good threats. They still do have a lot of influence over the metagame, but they're not going to be as cut and dry as you have to use these or you're choking games. For the A tiers are going to be for Pokemon that you still should have counterplay for, but they don't necessarily define the metagame. They're just Pokemon that are common enough to where you should be prepared to actually beat these with a dedicated slot in your team. For the B tiers, these are going to be for Pokemon you don't need to dedicate checks to anymore, but you should at least know your outs to these. These might be Pokemon like, for example, Abomasnow in Series 2. It was a Pokemon that was common enough, you should know how to play around it, but it's not going to define the metagame. Moving on to the C tier, we do have Pokemon here that check some of the S's and S pluses. Usually it's at least one is the gatekeep here. However, they're not necessarily going to be Pokemon that are really strong in the metagame, but they do have enough of a niche to where you should be at least respecting them as a presence. The D tier Pokemon are going to be for, at the very least, these are for Pokemon that are kind of in between like a niche Pokemon and like a YouTuber pick. I did have to kind of divide up D through F because the fact that the D tier is going to get kind of inflated pretty quickly, so we did have to make a new standard here that kind of starts with the D tier. So these are kind of for like the limbo between like a really just a meme pick and like a actual niche pick in the metagame. The E tiers and F tiers I have already actually pre-done. Now, there was not as many as I thought, but this is already 10% of the tier list to begin with, so it does kind of go a long way. So we are going to rapid fire through these really quickly. The E tiers are all of these really gimmicky Pokemon. I don't really think they have a lot of a place in the metagame. Mesprit, for example, is just kind of a shit UC, but it has mystical power, which is kind of cool, I guess. Galar Slowbro has Trick Room with priority with Quick Draw, so in case Trick Room's not up, that's kind of cool. You can go for priority attacks with Quick Claw. Or if you're slower under Trick Room than some of these Pokemon, great, you can Quick Draw, Quick Claw priority. Berserker's kind of interesting. I think Tough Claws plus like Fake Out, Iron Head, and then Helping Hand is pretty cool. Same as the Steely Spirit, but at the same time, there's not a lot of good steel types right now. This Pokemon might become good later on, but right now there's not a lot of great steels that really justify running a second steel next to them. And truthfully, I think the best instance of a steel that you could probably run would unironically be like a Terra Steel Garchomp. I'm sure I'm missing something, but as far as like a steel that would justify partnering with Berserker, there's not a lot of others. Samurott Unova is not going to be that good. It's just a shittier version of Hisui and Samurott. We have Sneasel Hisui, which is just not that good. It's okay with Poison Touch, I guess, but 115 speed, we don't see Sneasel doing a lot anyway. And compared to the pool, this is a really bad mon. Quagsire is here mostly just because of the fact that it's unaware and Terra, but at the same time, it's not even like the best water ground. It's really not that good. I threw these two in here, by the way, Berserker and Quagsire. I know that they're not transfers, but they're Pokemon that will probably be unbanned at the same time as this pool, so I wanted to include them in here today. But it's not that great. Before I get a comment about that, though, I just wanted to address that. There are other Pokemon that are not new to Pokemon Home, Scarlet and Violet Home. There's also new Pokemon that are just probably going to be included in this umbrella of picks anyway, so that's why they make the tier list. We have, for the F tiers, these are going to be for Pokemon that are so bad, they don't even deserve a mention. Like, I will not use these Pokemon, unless if someone, like, really wants to and they're a channel member. We have Dugtrio Alolan. This is really just tangling hair. It's the only reason it's the top of the list. We have Carbink, which is here because of Sturdy, and we have Calyrex here because bad Pokemon. Starting off our list, we have Charizard. So Charizard is going to actually get an A tier. Now, this will definitely become a very low A tier as we go through the list. There's a lot of really good A tier picks, but I do think that Charizard, unironically, is going to be a really strong Pokemon going into this format. Charizard is going to be really strong on Tailwind teams. Specifically, I think the best partner for this will actually be Murkrow. Murkrow, it's going to do a similar role to what it did for Chi-Yu, where it's going to set up a manual Sun and then go for Sunny Day plus Tailwind, and I think that's going to be a really strong partner with Pokemon like Goldengo as well. Now, it's not to say that Charizard is always the best pick here, but I do think that there are certain cores that maybe Charizard's a little more appreciated on. For example, I do think that teams that might be trying to partner with an Earthquake spammer like Great Tusk, Charizard's a pretty natural partner for that, and especially on these Mercury Sun teams, that's a pretty good role to have. Now, I will say that Chi-Yu in general with Pokemon like Fluttermane Bundle is really good, same as like Chi-Yu Merco Gholdengo is really good. There's cores that you just won't replace Chi-Yu on, because the goal is to try and boost the special attacking of other Pokemon. But that's not to say that Charizard will be bad, and I do actually expect this thing to top cut a regional or two. I expect this thing to actually win a tournament at some point before the end of Scarlet and Violet, so I'm kind of curious to see how this ends up doing. Alolan Raichu is going to get the D tier. This is definitely a gimmicky mon for sure. If this kept Rising Voltage or Expanding Force, even just one or the other, I would put this thing in C tier, because there's only one Expanding Force user, and that would be the Armarouge, and this could be a faster one. And for Rising Voltage, that would just be nuts with all the Paradox Pokemon from the future. This would actually be a really fucking good Pokemon if it got Rising Voltage, I can't lie. Because I think that this generation in particular, with how good the Paradox Pokemon from the future already are without Electric Train, if you then threw on a Pokemon with Rising Voltage and +2 speed that could also then partner with Tailwind or just bundle Icy Wind support, you start to kind of get out of hand. So honestly, this is the D tier, but if tutors come back, I could see this thing going up to like C or maybe B, like a bottom of B mon, but it would probably go up to like a high C. Moving on to Alolan Persian, this thing can honestly get a C tier. I don't think the meta needs this as much, but objectively speaking, Persian Alolan form does have a few key benefits in this format. For one, at the very least, this thing does have Fur Coat and Technician, both of which are pretty good. You can also get some good support, like for example, Icy Wind, Parting Shot. You have Fake Out, obviously. But at the same time, though, I feel like this is just kind of a placeholder for Incineroar in the metagame. And without an option like Intimidate, I don't know. I think the Terra is going to be a really easy way to get around this as well. And we have some of the best Pokemon in the format being special attackers like Fluttermane. While I will acknowledge, though, there are a lot of high tier physical mods, and you can definitely make Persian work. I don't think it's going to be the same as it was in Generation 7, and Generation 8 proved to be not a great metagame for it either, though that was mostly due to Dynamax ignoring fake outs. So we'll give this thing a C tier. Arcanine Hisuian form, I think I've kind of under-tiered this thing in the fire tier list, but I'm actually going to give this thing a B tier. This sits kind of obnoxiously hard. You don't even need Wild Charge coverage for waters. You hit really hard with Head Smash, Flare Blitz, and then fillers. Like, you could probably go with like a Bandit set with like E-Speed, Head Smash, Rock Slide, and Flare Blitz, and just go with like a Terra Normal or Terra Rock, and you're going to do some serious damage. This thing will be an incredible monster in Tailwind. I personally think this will be an incredible Tailwind breaker, actually. Really, I would be shocked if this thing doesn't at least top cut like a single regional. Truthfully, I think this one might even have a case for A tier. The damage output on this thing is fucking gross. It's genuinely like vile. And I could totally see this thing being like a really good wall breaker for some teams, maybe taking that Tusk spot in certain builds even, depending on what the team was trying to check. I think that Tusk offers a little bit better of that roll compression, and Earthquake is a really spammable move still. But I can't lie, Terra Rock, Banded Rock Slide on a Tailwind Sun team sounds pretty appealing. I don't think it's going to outright replace Tusk, but it is an option to at least consider here. And I think it's finally a physical attacker you can consider over Tusk, even if objectively Tusk is better. With that said, we'll give it B tier. Moving on to Alolan Muck. This thing will also get the B tier. I think it realistically, I forget where I put this thing in Poison and on Dark, but I've had a change of heart. I think in Muck, realistically, this thing has some really gross defensive calcs. After doing the how to use every home Pokemon video, this thing has a lot of really good calcs defensively speaking. And you could still get some pretty good moves as far as your moveset goes. For example, if we were to look at Alolan Muck's moveset, you can keep some moves like Knockoff, for example, so it is one of the few Knockoff users. However, you do lose moves like Pursue and Curse, which were pretty vital to Muck's moveset. Now, it's not to say that Muck is suddenly going to be some terrible Pokemon, but his alpha sets are going to still be really good. You can use this thing to be 3 carried by Choice Specs, Modest Terra, Fluttermane, which is really fucking cool. Even without going for like a Terra Stealer or Poison, just to get that resistance back. So Alolan Muck will definitely still have a place in the metagame. I do think it's going to be a little worse than Hisuian Arcanine, because Hisuian Arcanine will be kind of a pain in the ass to switch around. But overall, though, it'll still be a B tier, and it's still going to be a really good mod. Moving on up next, we do have Electrode Hisuian form, which I'm going to actually put in the bottom of C tier. I think Electrode Hisuian is going to be a really strong pick, and I think specifically the best set for this will actually be an offensive one with Terra Ice, with like Terra Blast, Thunderbolt, Leaf Storm, and then either Volt Switch or Protect, depending on if you're running a choice item or like a Life Orb or Magnet. The reason I think this is mostly because of the fact that Terra Ice will still be valuable for Pokemon like Landorus Therian. It's going to probably have at least 50% usage, or honestly at least 30%. And then on top of that as well, we're going to still have to deal with threats such as Gastrodon, which will require a Leaf Storm, or even just other Pokemon that might resist Ice but be super effective against Grass. And then we still have Electric. The coverage will be really good, and I do think that because of this, we're going to give Hisuian Electrode a C tier. It'll also be really cool on like bundle sets with Icy Wind bundle support or just other Tailwind teams, because this will be one of the fastest Pokemon in the format. So objectively, it has to be somewhat viable. Moving on, we do have Tauros. Now, Tauros is going to get a D tier. I think this thing is actually kind of interesting. I've ran some calcs. This thing can be kind of cool with Terra. Specifically, like bulky Intimidate Assault Vest sets can be used to check Flutter Mane, as well as the fact that you could use a Shield Force set to do some pretty good damage. I don't exactly think that it's some monstrous Pokemon, but it's at least noteworthy enough to where I didn't think it deserved an E tier slot, because that's kind of what we're going to go with. This thing is just kind of an okay mon. Speaking kind of okay mons, we have Articuno. Now, Articuno, I'm going to give the top of D tier. This thing is kind of whatever. Really, the biggest thing holding Articuno back is the lack of Aurora Veil. If this thing had Aurora Veil, I'd actually be inclined to even put this thing in the bottom of B tier, to be completely honest, because Articuno, and before anyone harasses in the comments, I know someone is already button mashing 6 different spam comments. Articuno with Terra actually could be pretty good. Specifically, if you were to Terra into a pure Ice type and you had ability Snow Cloak with also Aurora Veil, that could be pretty fucking hard to kill on this Pokemon, especially with Articuno being such a good Spidef tank already. You have the Fizdef boost from Ice. This would just be a really, really bulky version of like a Bundle or a Bomb Snow, and on top of this as well, unlike either of those Pokemon, you get recovery on this Pokemon. So I think that Articuno in this regard would actually establish itself as the bulky Pokemon in Hail, and you could even maybe pair this thing with like a low in Ninetales when it does come in the game. I don't know. Or a Bombsnow could still be good. But the Snowcloak Articuno could actually, in my opinion, be a really decent Pokemon with Terra if it had Aurora Veil. It does not, though. I think it's going to be kind of just a gimmicky mon. However, Snowcloak objectively is kind of a fine ability. This thing is really good bulk. You have Freeze Drive for coverage in tandem with Blizzard, and you could just Terra into whatever better type you want to be. I just no longer think it's going to be a Hail support Pokemon. It's just going to be a Pokemon that kind of takes advantage of opposing Hail. So we'll give this thing a D tier. Moving on to Galar Articuno. Galar Articuno can get a C tier. This thing will at least be above both of these Pokemon. I think realistically a Terra fighting moveset with something like Terra Blast, Freezing Glare, Hurricane, and Tailwind will be pretty strong. You could also ditch one of these moves for Protect if you wanted. But I think that with competitive as well as all the Intimidate Pokemon, it's kind of hard to see Galarian Articuno not being at least somewhat viable. So we'll give this thing a C tier. Zapdos is going to get an A tier. This is going to be our first top of A tier. Actually, I'm giving this thing an S tier. I think I might have given this thing a bit too low on previous tier lists, but Zapdos is going to be an objective S tier. Truthfully, I think that Zapdos might even have a case for S+, but I don't want to make that call just yet. Realistically, though, Zapdos' best benefit is going to be the fact that it's going to be a really strong Tailwind option. I think it's going to be really good on Brain. It's going to be really good offensively on a lot of teams. It's probably going to be one of the most versatile Pokemon, truthfully, coming out of the set. And I think, honestly, this might even just be one of the best S's. I don't know why I instinctively thought to put it in A tier. Realistically, its biggest gripe is going to be the fact that it's not Thundurus. But I'll have to get into Thundurus later on. Thundurus will deserve its whole extra point. But realistically, though, the fact that it's not Thundurus is the only thing keeping Zapdos at S+. And even still, it's actually, unlike a lot of the S's comparing to S+, has a lot of benefits over Thundurus. This is a lot bulkier than Thundurus, which means that you don't need to take as much out of offenses. They're both pretty interchangeable for what it's worth, on at least most teams, I would argue. Specifically, if you're just looking for a really good electric type that has a ground immunity, they're both pretty interchangeable. And that's what most teams typically need it for, because usually Thundurus has adapted to more offensive roles in previous, well, at least in Generation 8, I should say. But that was mostly because of Dynamax. I do think we'll see a similar situation, though, in Generation 9 at the very least, because of the fact that we have Terrestrial, and it's another very offensively leaning mechanic. And also because of the fact that we just have better Prankster Pokemon. So I don't think we'll need Thundurus as some Prankster support mod, but it will objectively be a good one. So I think for most teams, though, this generation, we will see some actual comparison. One of the biggest things that Zapdos will do better on is Rain. Zapdos and Rain will be insane to deal with. And I think that with Terra Water or Terra Grass, this thing will be a monster in terms of checking Pokemon like Palathin, while still dealing a lot of damage for Rain with moves like Thunder and Hurricane. Objective S tier. Galarian Zapdos, though, will get an A tier. I think with Defiant, as well as the typing being really strong, this thing will objectively be a really good A tier Pokemon. It'll be a great Tailwind threat. It'll be a great offensive threat with like a Choice Band or a Life Orb. This will just be a strong option. It'll be a fast Defiant user finally that will be viable in the format, so it's going to have that merit, because Kingambit was really the only viable Defiant user that I could think of offhand, so we'll at least have another one now. A tier. Moltres, honestly, this could have been E tier. I'm going to put this thing at the bottom of D though. I think at least the Flame Body is going to be kind of cool, and the fact that it's a Tailwind Mon and it could Terra out of that weakness, I guess, is something, but it's going to be just a really bad Charizard, in all honesty. Use Charizard. That's all I have to say about Moltres. Galar Moltres though. Galar Moltres can get an A tier. I think that for what it's worth, with all the really good Intimidate mons like Arcanine, Gyarados, and now Landorus Therian coming in, and I do think all three of these at least will be viable, if not at least Arcanine and Landorus, that Zapdos Galar will be slightly better for the format. However, Galarian Moltres will still be really good here. Another reason that I think that Galarian Moltres will be a little weaker is because despite the fact that with Landorus and Incineroar in the game, Galarian Zapdos was a little bit worse than Galarian Moltres in Generation 8, we lack Dynamax, which was a really free way for Galarian Moltres to pop Weakness Policy, and also without the lack of Airstream and also the lack of Max Darkness, it does hurt a little bit for Galarian Moltres, because those were really good ways for it to snowball teams with Weakness Policy. However, at the same time, this thing can be really good with Dual Dancing. You get Tailwind now. Galarian Zapdos gets Tailwind too, but it's not as big of a deal on it. But it is kind of an okay option for Galarian Moltres. I think it'll be an okay option in A tier. I mean, actually, I say okay, but this will be a strong threat. It's just not going to be the Galarian Moltres of Generation 8 is all. Next up is Mewtwo. Now, Mewtwo is going to get an S tier, but I'm putting Mew in the bottom of D tier. They're pretty comparable for why I'm going to do this. Really, the biggest difference comes down to stats, which this thing has a lot better stats, and abilities, which this thing has a lot worse offensive abilities. Synchronize with every move in the game and base 100s all around, it's just not impressive. However, Mewtwo has a lot of the same coverage that Mew has, at least all of the important things. On top of that as well, it has a 130 speed, it has a nerve, it has like a 154 special attack stat. Truthfully, the only reason that Mewtwo is not an S tier is because of the fact that fucking Calyrex Shadow exists, and it's just Mewtwo on crack. And you don't even really care about the 4x weakness anymore, because the fact that Mewtwo just doesn't really need to actually be the reason you run a Pokemon without a 4x weakness as far as that fast Psychic type goes, because Calyrex Shadow is faster, it has a better ability objectively, it also has a better stab set, and you could Terra around your 4x weakness. Why would you ever run Mewtwo? Really, like Mewtwo objectively is a fundamentally good Pokemon. It's a fundamentally crazy Pokemon, but it is so outclassed by Calyrex Shadow, I cannot put it any higher, I should say, than bottom of S tier. At least for now. We're gonna have a lot of Arceus forms that will compete with that. Hisuian Typhlosion, this is gonna get a D tier. We'll at least put it above Tauros. I think this thing could be kind of interesting. For one, the one biggest reason that you would actually run this thing over... Oh, I just realized I never included regular Typhlosion. I'll have to add that in a moment. But realistically, the biggest reason you would run this thing over Charizard would be the Eruption. This thing has the stabs as well that regular Typhlosion doesn't have, but they're pretty similar. Let me just snap real quick and we'll bring in the regular Typhlosion. Look at that, Typhlosion's here, and it's going to be literally right below. The only reason it's going to be mentioned in the same tiering range is because of the fact this is Flash Fire, which is kind of cool for Sun Mirrors, and this one is a second stab. They're both pretty interchangeable, but in my opinion, I think that Hisui is slightly better just because Ghost is a really cool offensive stab. And with Terra Fighting, you could actually make that thing into a monster. Same as Terra Fire. Anyway, both D tier. Galar Slowking, this can get a D tier as well. Really, the biggest reason that this thing can get a D tier is because of Chilling Reception, which is a really good momentum option after setting Trick Room. It can not only give really good Trick Room ice types like Glacier of really good defense boost, but it can also give them a really fast Hail mode with Satitan in the back, I guess. Satitan could be kind of cool in these sort of concepts because you could also maybe, especially in the ICs, you could bluff like a Sheer Force set on Trick Room and then just go really hard Trick Room and then clean an opponent late game with the snow anyway. So it could have some merit. I don't want to say this is going to be like a really good combo, but it's niche enough to where I'm going to give this thing a D tier. Qwilfish Sui, this thing can get a C tier. I think realistically this is actually a kind of cool Intimidate option with T-Spikes and all that. I'm actually going to put this thing right above these two realistically. With stuff like T-Spikes, Haze, etc., as well as the fact that you have Intimidate and a really good typing with only one single weakness, you can go for something like a Terra Flying moveset and honestly be a pretty good Pokemon overall. I think that Hisui and Qwilfish will be like a kind of okay option. I don't think it's gonna outright remove Glimwar's usage, but it could at least give some contention here. So I'm gonna give this thing a solid C tier. Kyogre S+, fuck you. Groudon S+, fuck you. Rayquaza, this mon is kind of shit. We're actually gonna give Rayquaza, this is gonna be like one of the lowest box arts, but there will be lower ones, don't worry. We're gonna put this thing at the top of B tier. Now, why is this the rankings for these fucking monsters? So, starting with Kyogre. Kyogre already has pretty much no Pokemon that actually beat it in matchups. Now, imagine this. I am really weak to Gastrodon, so I throw on a Terra Ground Kyogre. Why Terra Ground? you might ask. So Terra Ground Kyogre would essentially mean that with Thunder, Terra Blast Ground, and Origin Pulse, that you essentially have no checks in the game. Everything would be hit neutrally at the very least by this, including Gastrodon. And if Gastrodon ever did decide to go for a Terra Fire, you pop your Terra Ground and you nuke Gastrodon. It is gone. No more Gastrodon. Bye-bye Gastrodon. It's been nice knowing you. You also have Terra Grass, obviously, that can nuke Gastrodon pre-Terra. But that's the thing. Kyogre pre and post-Terra can essentially put up a really good 50-50, especially if your opponent does not know Terra. This is a little harder to pull off in open sheet, but in the ICs, this could be monstrous. This could be the reason you outright win on lead and that you might get put in a corner. However, even still, Kyogre is a monster. This thing is one of the best rain enablers. This thing will make Pelipper completely unusable because why the fuck would you use Pelipper when Kyogre is allowed? Kyogre will be dumb. Kyogre will be dumb. Groudon will be really good this format. This is going to be the best Groudon format it's ever had. I would be inclined to say this is actually going to be the first format I would truly see these Pokemon as equals. Despite Groudon having a really close showing to that in Sword and Shield, and it was probably the best showing that base Groudon has ever had, in at least my knowledge of competitive. I'm sure this is an incorrect statement. I did not play Gen 5 and earlier though. But base Groudon was really good in Sword and Shield because of how good Kyogre was, and also the fact he was just a really good max user. I do think this will be pretty similar in this format. The past Paradox Pokemon such as Fluttermane and Great Tusk, maybe not Great Tusk, but definitely Fluttermane and Roaring Moon could be really fucking good with this Pokemon. Great Tusk might even still see some usage because it could be a good Scarfer next to Groudon. I think objectively though, this will be a really good Pokemon, and I could definitely see restricted cores of like Groudon, Kyogre. I could see restricted cores with one or the other being pretty common. These two will be so influential though. I think that objectively they'll be some of, if not the most important S pluses to use in all of the restricted formats. Rayquaza gets B tier because of the fact that it can get Terra Normal E-Speed. It's just kind of like a budget Dragonite, and I do say budget Dragonite here very purposefully because of the fact that this thing does not get something like multi-scale or inner focus, both of which I would argue will be more, generally speaking, better abilities, though that might not be the case when Groudon and Kyogre enter the field. I don't think Rayquaza will be good enough to justify using it on every team, but it's going to be enough of a noteworthy Pokemon because of the fact that Groudon and Kyogre will be so obnoxiously good that I'm going to give it a B tier. If it wasn't for how good these Pokemon would be, truthfully, Rayquaza would get a C tier. Because I do think that Dragonite's abilities with Inner Focus being able to avoid Flinch and Intimidate, as well as on the opposite side, Multi-Scale being a lot bulkier, I think both do have a lot better merit here. But at the same time, though, this thing clearing weathers will be valuable when those Pokemon do enter the field. Moving on, we do have Uxie. Uxie gets a D tier. Truthfully, this is just kind of like a slightly better Mesprit. You get some options like Yawn, though, which is kind of cool. I'm actually putting this right below because I think that Chilly Reception is pretty good, especially with Glass Share. That'll actually be a cool core. But this will be just like a slightly worse Trick Room Setter than Galar Soaking. Galar Soaking at least has Terra to benefit. I mean, you could go with Terra Steel and Uxie, I guess, but it's just too passive. It's too passive. Your best set is probably going to be like Foul Play, Yawn, Trick Room, and Helping Hand. It's an okay mon. It's just kind of living until it doesn't anymore. That's about it. Azelf will be kind of cool. I think this thing will be an interesting pick. We'll give it a C tier. With Terra and stuff like Mystical Power, this could be kind of a cool snowball mon. I specifically think like a Terra Fighting set with like Terra Blast, then like specifically Terra Blast, Flamethrower, Mystical Power, then Protect. It could be a decent snowball at 115 speed on Tailwind. That's about it though. C tier. Doggo. Doggo's gonna get an S tier. I think realistically it's at least better than Mewtwo. I think Doggo will be an interesting Trick Room Pokemon for sure. I don't think it's going to be like a meta-defining pick or anything. Well, actually, no, I think it's going to be slightly meta-defining. This will be a slightly worse Generation 4 than I think that Generation 8 was. Max was really cool for Doggo, actually. It was probably the best generation since like 4. And I know Doggo was really good in 4. I don't know how good it was in 5, but at least it's, yeah. Besides, I think 8 was definitely the best generation Doggo had, but this will be a close second. No, never mind, because it used to resist, Ghost. Yeah, no, that was really good for it, wasn't it? Yeah. It was, point being is this will still be a really good generation for Doggo. I think Terra will be kind of okay on it. I don't think it's going to need Terra, though, truthfully. If anything, maybe like a Terra Fairy set could be kind of cool just because it's a good defensive type, or Terra Water. It's not going to be that needed, though. But at the very least, I do see that this Pokemon, at the very least, will be kind of useful as far as Trick Room goes. It's going to be a really good Trick Room setter with really good coverage all around. I can see this thing also being a really good offensive Trick Room mon. And the fact that it is a Steel type, we finally have a good Steel type again, ladies and gentlemen. We did not have a lot, but truthfully, the restricted metagame will offer a lot of these, specifically like the box art ones. And yeah, I think realistically, Doggo will be in a pretty decent good position in this metagame. I think that it will be at the very least better than Dialga Origin. Now, there was some speculation that you did not need the items held on these Pokemon to keep the Origin forms. However, that has been disproven. You do, in fact, need the items for the Origin forms. So for Dialga Origin, I'm going to be giving this thing all the way down in the bottom of fucking C tier. That is going to probably be the thing that gets a million people upset with this video. I do not fucking care. Not having an item is really, really bad. Truthfully, the only reason it's not in the D tier is because the very, very bare minimum, this thing is not a gimmick. Dialga Origin at least has a couple things, I guess, that are better. Specifically, if you're not looking to run an Assault Vest set, you can get slightly better Spinef Calcs out of this Pokemon. That's where the benefits end. I kid you not. Dialga Origin, though, will objectively hurt a lot from not having item. Dialga is such a good Citrus Berry Mon. It's such a good Assault Vest Pokemon, too. Like, this is a really good Assault Vest tank. Dialga Origin can't run that. On the same time, though, you also don't get a speed advantage, which is at least something that Palkia Origin has over Palkia. You don't really care about Terra anyway, and the fact that your stabs are Steel Dragon. That's a really good typing to keep anyway in base. You don't really need to care about anything else. And really, the only reason you would run this Pokemon is if you want to run Dialga, but you already have item slot pressure. It's the only reason you would run this. But overall, though, yeah, this is just a shit Dialga. Moving into Palkia, though, Palkia will also be really good. I think Palkia will definitely be, I think it's actually going to be slightly worse. And that might be a bit of a hot take. But I think there's going to be a lot of Pokemon. Actually, no, never mind. Palkia's coverage is really gross. And this thing having 100. No. Actually, I'm going to put Palkia in the A tier. Palkia is going to get the... No, actually, I can't. Because Palkia having items is really good. I'm going to put it slightly below Dialga, though, because I do think that actually Dialga's typing, specifically of Steel Dragon, will be slightly better offensively in this format. Being a Dragon type that can stab, just hit Pokemon like Fluttermane is really good, and having that neutrality to it is going to be important. Both of these are really good. They're pretty interchangeable in most comps, though, to be completely honest, because you're usually just looking for a Dragon with a really good defensive typing, and usually both of these fill that role. It just depends on if you want your Steel or your Water as backliner, I guess, but essentially, though, Palkia is really good. It's a pretty decent Trick-Room threat. It's a pretty decent offensive threat. It's really good next to Pokemon like Groudon and Kyogre. It's one of the best checks to both of these. Specifically, I think that checking Groudon and Kyogre will be the best benefit that this thing has over Palkia Origin. I'm going to put Palkia Origin slightly above these, though. I still think that the item slot thing is going to hurt Palkia Origin like a bitch, but at the same time, though, having a 120 speed will be pretty beneficial. You're going to tie a Pokemon like Arceus, for example, which will be huge. Even still, you're going to tie a lot of other common Pokemon in this format, or even just outpace some good ones. For example, you'll make booster speed Roaring Moon mandatory, which is kind of a big deal. You'll outpace Pokemon like the Genies, for example. You'll outpace Pokemon like Iron Moth if it's not booster speed. You'll outpace Walking Wake if it's not booster speed. Like, you'll outpace a lot of these Paradox Bonds and force booster speed, which that alone I think is going to be important. So we're going to give Palkia Origin slightly higher in the S tier, albeit you could make a case slightly lower. I think a speed will be kind of a nice benefit, though. Heatran's up next. Heatran's kind of whatever this format. Loss of Eruption kind of sucks, but its typing is so good, and this will be a monster with Terra. We're going to give this thing an A tier. I'm putting it... No, not an E tier, an A tier. We're putting it right above Charizard. Giratina. This mon already kind of sucks. It's really bulky. This thing, weirdly enough, I'm actually putting Giratina in the... I'm putting this thing in the C tier. This thing will get the lowest spot in the C tier. I think Giratina Origin will actually be the better form this generation, specifically with Tailwind as well as Terra. You could make this thing into a pretty good Terra Steel user, and it's going to be kind of hard to kill. And I think that will actually be the biggest reason you run Giratina Origin. I know that objectively not having an item slot will kind of hurt, but this will benefit a lot more from Terra than Giratina regular does. And I think that alone will be decent for it. Neither will be that good, to be honest, but I think that Terra Steel plus this will actually be really hard to kill. Same as Terra Fire, actually, but Terra Steel will probably be better for like Rock Slide Landorus, which will be huge. So yeah, honestly, this could be kind of a cool option. I'm kind of interested to see how good Terra Steel Giratina Origin does. This could be interesting. Specifically like a Wisp, Tailwind, Hex, and then filler set, like Draco or something. Yeah, that could be not bad, at least. This just kind of sucks. It's just worse Giratina. Truthfully, the only reason it's not going to get D tier is because its stats are too good, and the fact that this could unironically maybe just be a good Pressure Sponge, and maybe just be a good Stallmon, but that's about it. Cresselia gets an S tier. Lunar Blessing will be really fucking good. We're going to put Cresselia right below Zapdos. I think Zapdos is still slightly more splashable, but Cresselia is probably the closest to Zapdos that we've gotten among all of our S tiers so far. It just barely misses out on Zapdos, in my opinion. The support moves like Helping Hand, Icy Wind, Thunder Wave, Lunar Blessing, especially, which is really good at this. It's essentially Jungle Healing, which Root had, but it's on Cresselia. And it's on a Pokemon that's a lot bulkier and a lot more able to take advantage of this. So, honestly, the Psychic typing is not great, but it's such a good Trick Room Sponge. Terra Steel Cresselia will be a monster to handle. Objective S tier. Now we get into Arceus forms. So it's time for the speed run round, ladies and gentlemen. If you could look already, we probably have about like 40 months done. We have a lot to go through. So we're going to speed run the Arceus forms. I've already went over pretty much every Arceus in all the type tier lists. So if you want more in-depth thoughts, go to those. Pretty much all of the type tier lists are done at this point. We have like 3 left. But essentially, Arceus normal, broken Pokemon. Terra plus the fact that you have priority E-Speed Stab on top of the fact that you have gross coverage, S+. Arceus, I think this is fighting. This one is one of the worst Arceus types. We're going to put this one at the bottom of S tier. Arceus Flying. Arceus Flying is also not going to be great. We'll put this thing at least above Mewtwo because of the immunity. S tier. Arceus, I think this one is Psychic, I think. No, this one's Poison, actually. Is this Poison? This one, I'm pretty sure is Poison. We're going to label this one as Poison. This should be Poison. Poison's not going to be that great. You don't really care about the immunity. Truthfully, it's one of the worst ones in this format. The only benefit this thing does have is the fact that you can pick up T-Spikes for Dozo teams, I guess. Not really going to be that good. Arceus, I think this one is Ground, I want to say. Pretty sure this one, yeah, this one's Ground. Ground will be really good. This one's objectively an S tier. Actually, this one, I've changed my opinion on this one. This one's an S+. Realistically, Ground plus Ice with Terra in either department will be really fucking good. You could weirdly enough actually make this thing a Terra Ice set on a Hail team and be really monstrous that way, or Terra Grass. Point being is this will be kind of gross as a Combine or Sword Sentimon. Edge Creek coverage is really gross. Objective S+. Bottom of it, for sure. I think a Groudon will be a lot better because of Sun, but it's an S+. This one is Terra Rock. Terra Rock is just not going to be that good. It's going to be one of the worst ones. We'll put it right above Poison, because at the very least, Rock Slide Stab is going to be kind of cool, as well as Special Rock Stab for Judgment will be good. I think that having the Special Judgment for fighting matters a little bit more, because Focus Blast is so much more unreliable, but Special Rock is kind of cool, because its best option is like Ancient Power, so we'll give it that. Arceus Bug. This one can get, I've actually changed my opinion on this one too. This one gets an A tier. I no longer think this is an S tier. Actually, no, I do. This thing is kind of interesting. Really good fighting check. At the same time, also, this has some weirdly enough okay resistances. Specifically, it's the big one is fighting. But you also can go for options to cover mons like Dark types and Psychic types, and you can get some good coverage out of this thing actually. With SD sets, specifically like an SD set with like X-Scissor plus like Rock Slide, that could be kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know. This thing is at least an S tier. Arceus Ghost, S+. This thing is better than Arceus Ground at the very least. Not by much, but it is better. I still think the fact that this can't set weather makes it below the weather setters. Those objectively just alone will be so fucking game changing. And Arceus Ghost and Arceus Normal will probably truthfully just prefer Terraing into Ghost, and that will be the better option there, or just Terra Normal. This could do the same. It could Terra Normal and get the stab off of E-Speed, but at the same time, though, I think objectively just it's weaker than these three. Arceus Steel. This one will be interesting. It's a really good Steel type. I think it's to be weaker than Ghost in this format. Ghost will benefit a lot from Terra, actually. Terra is going to break this mon. But Terra Steel, Arceus will be really good defensively speaking. Really hard to kill. I do think, though, that Arceus Normal is kind of like the pinnacle of the Arceus forms, so we're going to put it drastically below. Arceus Fire. Kind of cool in VGC. It's at least better than these. It deserves at least a viable tier, because there's not as much that really breaks it as easily. Ground and Rock do kind of hurt this mon, so S tier. Water is going to get an S tier. This is going to be right above Flying. I think Palkia is kind of the reason this thing doesn't get an S+, truthfully, as well as Kyogre. Kyogre just kind of invalidates it, but it's an okay Kyogre check. Arceus Grass, this thing can actually get a pretty high tiering solely for the fact that it's a ground resistance and it's a Kyogre check. It's actually a pretty good Kyogre check at that. It's the only reason this thing gets an S tier. Well, it's the only reason this thing gets so high in the S tier, I should say. Specifically among other Arceus forms. It's not that great among other grass types in the S tier, but it's really good compared to Kyogre, and checking Kyogre is huge. Arceus Electric, this is probably one of the worst Arceus forms. Bolt Beam coverage is pretty good. I would truthfully just rather go for Arceus Ice though, because at least you get the snow benefit pre-Terra, and I think that doing it in the reverse is a little bit worse for you. So we're gonna give this thing, this can at least get above like Rock. Oh no, this can at least get above Poison, because at least Rock is the natural Spadef boost and stab to Rock Slide. Arceus Psychic, this one kind of sucks. It's at least better than these though, because I think that Psychic Fighting is really good, and with like a Terra Fighting set, you could actually be pretty okay. Arceus Ice, unironically one of the better Arceus forms this generation. Watch out, guys. This one will be kind of broken. This will be hard to kill.
I'm giving it at least above flying. No, I'll give it at least above fire. I think that realistically, nope. Actually, I'm going to give it above flying. This could be dangerous on Hail, I think. Mark my words, this will be a really good Pokemon on the Hail team. If this ever gets legal in a format, we will see RC-sized Hail. Count on it. With like a Terra, just to get her out of bad matchups, like a Terra Grass or like a Terra Water or something. I don't know. But you will see RC-sized Hail. Mark my words. One of the better RC forms. RC's Dragon. Outclassed by most dragons. At the same time, though, it's so obnoxiously brain dead that I at least need to put it above. We'll put it above. We'll put it right below fire. Having the burn immunity could be kind of cool for like a Flare Blitz set. This did get Flare Blitz. I think it might have gotten Heat Crash as well. It got one of the two at the very least. I forget which. Fire moves. It was Flare Blitz. It was not Heat Crash. Still really good for it though. Having a built-in fire stab could be huge for Flare Blitzes actually, and RC's fire will benefit a lot from that. I think it's enough of a niche to put it above Dragon at the very least. RC's Dark. That's definitely one of the better ones. Truthfully, I think this is probably going to be it'll go right above Flying at the very least. I think that having the immunity to Sass Spam will be huge. It's going to be a really good one on balances. Judgment will be pretty cool. I think that Ice does benefit a lot more from this metagame though, I'm going to be completely honest. And I think specifically having Ice on Hail to try and dissuade opposing weathers will be the biggest benefit, because this could be a really good anti-meta option around that. Finally, we have Arceus Fairy. This is the final Arceus in S tier. This is going to be the weakest of the bunch for sure, but with how many dragons there will be in the restricted metagame, even just right now, let alone when they do all come back through DLCs, because they will eventually objectively have to come back, this will be important. So we're going to give it an S+. We've now finished the Arceus speedrun. I think it took like 6 minutes for 18 months. Not bad. Moving on, we do have Samurai Hisuian. Samurai Hisuian can at least get a B tier. This thing will be pretty cool, actually. Having hazards built into a signature move will be amazing, especially when that signature move is boosted by sharpness. I think this will be a pretty cool trigger mon, as well as a pretty cool tailwind mon. The 85 speed is just in that sweet spot to fit kind of well for both. But I think objectively, this will be a pretty interesting pick for sure. You're going to have to keep your eyes out for it, because I think Hisuian Samurai will be kind of a threat. Specifically, I think Assault Vest sets will be the best ones. Those Sword Dance builds next to like an Amoonguss could be pretty terrifying too. Objective B tier. Hisuian Lilligant, this will be an A tier for sure. I think I'm going to put it right above Charizard. This will be just a better version of regular Lilligant. The difference being though is this thing can also be kind of cool on hustle builds with like a hustle set with high jump kick. No, I probably want to run high jump kick, like close combat, ice spinner, leaf blade, or even solar blade, and then filler, because most Sun teams will not care as much about making this into a support mon, just because of the fact this could be a good breaker for them as well, clearing water types for you. I think that objectively Chlorophyll will be the best set, but I think that Hustle on Tailwind Sun teams with like Murkrow as a setter could be kind of interesting too. Definitely though, this will be an interesting A tier for sure. Hisuian Zoroark is going to get a B tier. This will get at least above the Giratina. Having the typing with the immunities that it has, stuff like Fake Out, Mach Punch, Extreme Speed, etc., will be pretty valuable. You get a lot of good immunities out of this Pokemon, being to Ghost, Fighting, and Normal, which are all really appreciated. So we'll give Hisuian Zoroark at least a B tier off of that. You could bluff some serious mind games with this and become a really decent threat. So we'll give it at least that ranking for sure. Braviary Hisuian can get a C tier. I'm at least going to put it above Electrode and Persian. This could be a cool Snowball Mon with Esper Wing being pretty good on Tin and Lens sets. I think those will be the better sets, but Sheer Force on Trick Room will be a nightmare to handle as well. Realistically, I think it's the versatility this thing does provide. So, yeah, it is that versatility that you'll provide with stuff like, for example, Esper Wing with Heat Wave, and then like Hurricane, or like Terra Blast, for example, with like a Fighting, or even a Fire Terra Blast to boost Heat Wave. This is a lot of options, I think, and both Tin Lens and Sheer Force will be really dangerous abilities. The mind games of that on Trick Room and Tailwind potentially will be really good. I could see this thing being an objective C tier. Tornadus, broken. This is at least better than the RC forms. Having Prankster Tailwind will be obnoxious to handle. You get a lot of good Prankster support out of this Pokemon, and it will redefine how most teams have to play around Tailwind, because Tornadus is just an actually good Pokemon. Having Prankster Tailwind on a Pokemon that is not either limited to only until it takes damage like Talonflame, and having it on a Pokemon that's not Murkrow BST is going to be insane. We have already seen Tailwind become a metagame staple. Now imagine that on a Pokemon with good BST and still pretty near the same utility that Murkrow has. Broken. Tornadus Therian, this is going to get a C tier. Realistically, it's going to at least get above, like, it'll at least get right here. The fact that you have Regen is a pretty cool ability, and really, if it wasn't compared to Torn Eye, this would probably be like a B tier mon, but it has such opportunity cost next to Tornadus Incarnate that why are you running this Pokemon? Like, you should only be running this thing in, like, challenges, to be completely honest, but it's an okay thing at worst. Thunderous Eye, this still gets an S+ for sure. I would actually put this thing slightly below Tornadus Eye for the current metagame. Specifically the fact that I think that the current metagame does benefit a little bit more from having Tailwind being the thing. But this has a lot of good speed control too, with stuff like Scary Face, Thunderwave. You also have Weathers, obviously. You have some really good stuff like Storms. Oh, the Storms are really good on these Pokemon too. They're all going to be really cracked. And I think this one benefits slightly more because you no longer need to go for Spread Electric with a ground type next to you, which is pretty huge. Objectively though, these will both be S pluses. They'll both be monsters in my opinion in this metagame. Thunderous Thunderous T. This will get an A tier. I think Thunderous T will actually be probably one of the best A tiers. Really good nasty plot breaker, and I think that with Terra, this could actually be a pretty decent offensive monster. It'll benefit a ton from being on a Tailwind team, and I could even see cores of like Thunderous Therian next to Torn Eye and being really monstrous that way, with something like a Terra Water set to try and get around ground types. Could be pretty interesting, or Terra Flying as well for Terra Blast. Could definitely be really good. I think that objectively this is going to be a really good breaker. Easy A tier. Moving on, we do have Lando Eye. Lando Eye is going to get an S tier. I'm going to actually put this thing right above Cresselia. I think Zapdos is still going to be the best S tier, truthfully, but having the Sandsear Storm with Sheer Force boost being a spread ground type option, it'll be pretty deadly because that does about as much damage as Earth Power would. I think it's slightly less damage than Earth Power, but like 20 base points, but you could spread do it, and it's only to the opponents. That's going to be insane damage to deal with. And mix sets with stuff like that plus Rock Slide will be really hard to handle. Landorus Eye objectively will be a really strong S tier pick, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it does in this metagame. Really, the only reason it's out of the S plus tier is because of the fact that Landorus T exists. Now, I will say, I do think that Landorus T will actually not be as broken in this metagame. Clear Amulet is really good around this Pokemon, on top of the fact that as well, we do have a lot of ground type competition in the really high echelon. There's not a lot of good ground types, but the ones that are good are monstrous. Stuff like Garchomp is probably the only ground type besides Landorus Eye that I would say is objectively like worse than Landorus. We'll have Pokemon like Ursaluna, which Ursaluna is really good. I've actually changed my opinion this month, but we'll get into that in a bit. Ursaluna is really cracked. Groudon, obviously, when Restricted's come into play. We'll have Great Tusk, which is really good. So there's a lot of really high tier ground types that will give a lot of competition with Landorus. On top of this as well, Landorus missing moves like Knockoff is pretty huge because it was a really low drawback option on the Assault Vest build. However, Terra Blast can slot into pretty easily in this moveset. I think objectively, the Assault Vest builds will be the best way to run Landorus in this game. Though Swords Dance can definitely have some merit because Great Tusk cannot set up a Swords Dance, and that's really about all that it has there. Also, it creeps bundle still, so you don't need to run Garchomp to do that anymore, which is kind of cool, but Garchomp still has a faster speed stat anyway, and it matches up really well into a lot of these box arts, so yeah, I don't know. I don't think Landorus is exactly bad in this format, but it's going to be bad for Landorus, if that makes sense. Still an S+, though, because Landorus is still a gross Pokemon, offensively speaking. Moving on, we do have the Meloetta. Meloetta forms, I'm putting both together, but I do think that I need to make a distinction here specifically. We'll put Meloetta right here, and I'm putting Pirouette slightly lower. I think the opportunity cost for Pirouette is slightly worse, but if you're spamming Relic Song anyway, may as well take advantage of it. Just, you don't really want to stay in that form. May as well just run a full special set, though, with Meloetta. That's really about it. Delphox, pretty interesting option with Terra. This could be kind of cool with, like, Terra Fairy set. I think specifically, it's going to be, like, Gleam, Heat Wave. I'm pretty sure this thing gets Heat Wave. Does it get Heat Wave? I'm almost certain this thing gets Heat Wave. Heat Wave, yep. Heat Wave, Gleam, and then like Psychic, and then Protect will probably be the best set. You can also go with Flamethrower there because you will have Gleam as a spread with Terra Fairy. This will be like a pretty cool D tier option. I'll put it right below the type. Actually, no, right above the Typhlosion. Speed stat of 104 is pretty cool. Chestnut's going to be interesting. This could be a cool Drummon, actually. I'm going to put this thing actually all the way above Raichu. Actually, no. Yeah, right above Raichu. No, right above UC even. This could be a cool Drummon. I think specifically like a Terra Rock Drum set with like Rock Slide, Belly Drum, Drain Punch, and then Protect could be interesting. With like a Citrus Berry or even a Salac Berry too. Or throw this on Tailwind and then you're set. This thing will be kind of okay. You can also go with Trailblaze as well over like Protect, for example, and start boosting your speed that way too, and go with like a Citrus Berry moveset. This will definitely be an option to keep an eye on. I think it could be kind of okay. D tier for sure. Greninja kind of sucks. This is gonna get like the bottom of D tier. Really, it's the speed and the Protean that keep this thing out of E tier because it's kind of okay. You could have actually maybe put this thing in E tier. In fact, I am gonna put this thing in E tier. Greninja's just not that good in this format. Greninja's outclassed by Meowscarada as far as the fast option goes. It's already not that good to begin with. Cinderace as well, despite being slightly slower, will benefit from Sun. Greninja, you can make a case for. Maybe that'll benefit from Rain. No, Greninja will suck too much. And there's already a better priority Rain option on Palafin. Stop kidding yourself. E tier. I should have included this earlier. Greater Hisuian, this will be kind of a cool one actually. I'm putting this thing in the B tier. Another dragon that will rank right above Giratina Origin, and regular Giratina and Daga Origin for that matter. But this will be cool with Terra. Realistically, the Assault Vest sets will be really fucking cool. I think that stuff like Terra Steel or Terra Water or Grass will all be cool options on this. I think specifically Terra Water will be the best with like a Sap Super build, because you clear one of your 2 weaknesses that way, and you still have options like Muddy Water. You can go with like a mixed set or like a full physical set. Both will be really terrifying here in my opinion. And I think that Hisuian Goodra will objectively be a B tier. DNC is going to be interesting as well. This will be kind of cool with Trick Room as well as the Terra options. This could be a kind of decent offensive mon with stuff like Diamond Storm being a cool spread, as well as stuff like Moonblast as coverage. This will be at least a D tier. I think that this could actually... Actually, I want to put this thing in C tier. DNC with Terra is going to be kind of interesting. I'm going to put this thing as far as above Azelf, actually. I think this will be the best generation and the only generation DNC's ever even had potential to be okay in as far as VGC goes. Typing's not that great without Trick Room and Terra, but this could be a decent Terra mon nonetheless. Specifically, I'm thinking like a Terra Ground set could be really decent, like a Terra Fire set could be really decent, but overall, C tier for sure. Moving on, we do have Volcanion. Now, Volcanion's kind of interesting too. I think this will be a pretty decent option with stuff like Water Absorb, benefiting Terra Fire sets just to try and lean in on Heat Wave. This could be good on Sun or Rain, but it's kind of just outclassed by Walking Wake. We're going to give this thing objectively, I want to say this will get like a C tier. I feel like this will get a C tier. Yeah, we'll put this thing right below DNC, because at least DNC has a better Tailwind stat. Actually, we'll put it right above... We'll put it right here. This will be kind of cool. I just think that it's going to be outclassed. The typing of Water Fire is really good defensively speaking. It's a really good offensive typing too, but I think it's just a worse Walking Wake. Hoopa is going to be cool on Trick Room. This will be a decent Trick Room breaker with the Ghost Psychic typing being really good. Terra will also make this thing into a monster. I'm actually going to put this thing at the top of C. I think this will be its base 70 speed is actually really important for Trick Room. With Room Surface especially, this could be an actual legitimate threat. Hoopa Unbound, meanwhile, is going to get the B tier. I think the ability to Shatter Protect with Hyperspace Fury will be important. However, at the same time, there's a lot better Assault Vest Sponges with Terra, like this spawn right here, and this spawn right here, and this spawn right here. However, at the same time, the base 8 speed is kind of cool. It's just going to be a slightly worse physical dark than Hisuian Samurott, so we'll get this thing a B tier. Decidueye will be interesting. This gets a C. Actually, this gets a D tier for sure. Realistically, I'm going to put this thing right below Delphox. This can be kind of okay at checking Dozo. I mean, I've made sets to do it before, but it's kind of just gonna be like a really hard to like work into a team Pokemon where you're doing it because you want to run Decidueye, but it's good enough at the rolls. Assuming Decidueye, meanwhile, I'm gonna put this thing right above Persian. Actually, I'm gonna put it right above Meloetta in the C tier. Realistically, Decidueye Hisuian form with Trailblaze could be kind of cool. You also get some scrappy sets with like Close Combat and then like Leaf Blade and Knockoff and Protect on Trick Room. That could be kind of cool. And then Scrappy getting around different ghost types could maybe be okay. That's really all I have to say on Decidueye Hisuian. It's not going to be that great, but it's going to be a kind of niche option on Trick Room. And Grass Fighting is an okay option, especially with Terra and the fact that this thing has a really good move pool. You can maybe go with like a Scope Lens set as well, with Triple Arrows plus Leaf Blade, both having a really good crit rate. And I think that could be pretty decent. Oh, never mind, Triple Arrows, and that's right, yeah. So you'd probably go with like Triple Arrows and then Leaf Blade Knockoff and then Protect, and just go with like a Scope Lens. That'll be really good in Trick Room. Easy C tier though. Moving on, we have Magearna. S+. Fuck your feelings. Magearna is broken. This is gonna be objectively a nightmare Pokemon. This will at least probably be better than... Will it be better than both of these? I don't know necessarily. I'm putting it in S+ at the high end for now. I feel like this could be better than Groudon and Kyogre. Specifically with Terra, I think this will be a monster. But at the same time, though, Groudon and Kyogre, the difference between Groudon and Kyogre is, while I don't think objectively they're going to be better individual Pokemon, they enable so much field presence that you have to care about so many different things at once. Magearna really is just someone. But it at least rivals Groudon and Kyogre. Truthfully, I'm actually going to have to make an S++, I think, for Magearna through Arceus. Because I think they're just that good. Yeah, we're going to give these an S+++. Because I do think that is what we've gotten in this metagame. Because these four in particular, I think, are just so vastly better than the next Pokemon below them. And I do hold that sentiment, because these four outright, like, you need to outright handle them and everything they're putting on the field. For the weathers in particular, you need to clear their weather as well as these Pokemon. You need to clear Magearna before it gets even a single boost, and for Arceus, it's just gonna priority spam. Fuck Arceus. Zacian. Oh, perfect. We got another So Zacian will get the S plus. Zacian base will get the S plus purely because of the fact that it's not Zacian Crown. But it's still really broken. Zacian Crown, yet another one to join the S plus plus. Weirdly enough, I actually think this will be the worst of the bunch. Zacian Crown will actually not be as broken as it was in last gen. The nerf does rust. The nerf 2 of the hidden ability Intrepid Sword will actually be pretty good. I don't know why I called it hidden ability, but the nerf 2 Intrepid Sword will be huge because Zacian can no longer actually lead. It's going to be a really good cleaner now, but you cannot put up the lead presence that you once could. So I think it actually will maybe be outclassed by a lot of these other outright titans in the format, but at the same time though, it's still going to be really good. The Fairy Steel typing is brain dead, especially with 150 base speed. Well, I think it's like 148, but it's still close enough. Point being, absolute brain dead Pokemon. Fuck you, Zacian Crown, and fuck you for being able to Terra. Zamazenta is going to be kind of whatever. We're going to put, let's see. So Zamazenta base actually will probably be like an A tier. I'm putting this in the A tier solely because of the fact it's going to be a cool Scarf fighting type, but it's not going to be that great realistically. The Dauntless Shield nerf is going to be kind of bad for it. But 138 speed is pretty cool, and this could maybe be good on Tailwind. Creeping Bundle, at least before booster, could be kind of interesting. Meanwhile, Zamazenta Crowned, at least I'm going to give, like, I'm going to give it right above Mewtwo. This thing gets coaching back, this can maybe get an S+, but realistically, this is still kind of an okay option with, like, Wide Guard, as well as the ability to Terra and go for, like, Iron Red's Body Press sets with Stab Body Press is good and better bulk and defensive typing. Yeah, this is at least an S tier. You can maybe go for, I don't know. Actually, I'm putting both of these in the A tier. I'm putting both these in the A tier until coaching gets back, and then this one can maybe get an S tier. Moving on, we do have a Eternatus. Eternatus is kind of whatever. We're gonna give this thing at least above like Charizard in the A tier. Realistically, the biggest nerf this thing does have is the lack of Meteor Beam. If this thing kept Meteor Beam, this would actually be a really good Pokemon in the S tier or even S plus and S plus plus. I think I may have over tiered this thing truthfully with the Poison tier list, but regardless, Meteor Beam nerf is kind of bad for this thing. It's actually really bad for this thing. So we're gonna give it an A tier. If this thing gets Meteor Beam back though, this is an objective S tier, like a high S tier. Moving on, we do have Rillaboom. Rillaboom losing Grassy Glide hurts. This is still going to be kind of an okay AV sponge. We'll give this thing at least above, we'll give it at least above his Zoroark, the B tier. When Grassy Glide comes back, this is an S tier, like maybe even an S+. It's going to be at least a high, like around the Zapdos level, maybe even like bottom of Zacian level. Until the end, it's going to be kind of whatever. It's at least like a YouTuber pick. Actually, no, this is just worse Greninja. It's literally just worse Greninja, but it's still basically Greninja. Cinderace will be interesting. Libra nerf kind of sucks, but this thing is mostly spamming Pyro Ball on Sun. So we're going to give this thing, we'll give this thing an A tier. It's not going to be the monster it was last gen. Last gen with Dynamax was so huge for this thing. We'll at least put it, we'll put it right below Charizard, I think. I think Charizard will be slightly better, but they're going to be kind of comparable. Urshifu Single. Urshifu Single is going to be first. We're putting both of these actually pretty similar. They'll actually both be S pluses. I just need to drag them up to S tier first to even get them in the S plus. They're both at least going to be like right below Landorus Therian. I think realistically, they're both going to be really good offensive powerhouses. The ability to break through Protect as well as, well, not break through, just to ignore Protect outright, as well as to get guaranteed crits on everything with their signatures, it's going to be huge. They'll both probably Terra either into options like Fire, or they'll just Terra into Stabs for their signature moves. That's really about it. They're pretty simple Pokemon. They're going to probably run the Sash sets or like the Bandit sets like they did last gen. They get Sword Dance now, I guess, but I don't think they're going to truthfully ever run it because they just don't need to run it. They'll just crit through everything and kill everything. Objective S pluses though, for sure. Moving on to Glacier. Glacier will be dumb. However, it's going to be like S tier level dumb because Calyrex Ice just exists. It's still going to be pretty high though. I actually would value this mon right below Cresselia. With Snow, this will be a really good Trick Room option, and I do actually seriously think that a Bomb of Snow plus Glacier could be a good core, or even like the Chili Reception core could be decent. But objectively, this is an S tier. Spectre will also be an S tier. I'm actually putting this one at the right below Zapdos level of S tier. This will be a good Snowball mon. I just think Zapdos is better. Zapdos is like the defining best Pokemon in the S tier. That will not change no matter how much else gets in the S plus, because it is objectively worse than the S pluses, but it is so splashable that it is like the peak S tier. Spectre is a close second though. This thing with Terra will be nuts, with like Terra Fighting or Terra Fairy being really good options, especially Terra Fairy, because you can lean into that Draining Kiss route, and it's a slightly weaker option like a Terra Blast would be for sure. But at the same time though, being able to not have to Terra to get a stab, well, not Terra to get a coverage option for Dark, I should say, will be pretty valuable. So objective S tier. Glacier Ice form thingy, S plus. This thing gets an S plus. We'll put this thing actually right below Landorus. This one's a little bit harder to pull off, I think. And despite Terra being really good for this mon and Glacial Lance still being broken, I think these three are just more consistent support Pokemon. And I think that Actually, I'm going to put their Shifu's right above it too, purely just because the opportunity cost. I've mentioned this a lot in previous tier lists, but the opportunity for the restricted is kind of big. And these 5 not counting as restricted for teams where you could stack most of them together is pretty huge. Calyrex S, on the other hand, fuck this mon. This thing is broken. This actually will probably be the second best Pokemon today, to be completely honest. It's one of the only restricteds that you could run and not care about not running Kyogre or Groudon, because Calyrex Shadow will just be that dumb. You can tear out of your weakness to Dark in case you're worrying about Sucker Punch. You can also just pair this thing with Psychic Terrain, and that's also really dumb. Losing Expanding Force, good. This thing did not. I'm pretty sure this thing had Expanding Force. If it didn't, it better not get it back. Or it better not get it at all if that move ever comes back. But Astral Barrage is still really dumb, and you can throw that like Astral Barrage, Protect, Will-O-Wisp, and then like Terra Blast Fighting, and that's enough. Objective S++, for sure. Moving on to Zarude. Zarude's gonna get a D tier. Actually, no, let's get to C tier. It's gonna get like right below Electrode Hisuian. Jungle Healing's kind of cool, but this mon lost Darkest Lariat, which kind of sucks for it. I think I've tiered this thing a lot higher than I should have in the Grass and Dark type tier list in hindsight, but yeah, it's just kind of okay. Jungle Healing's the thing that saves it. Regieleki. Regieleki is kind of good. It's not gonna be an S++ at the very least, but it will be an S tier. Well, an S+. I'm gonna put it actually right below the Genies. I think the Genies will all be better than it this gen, mostly because of the fact that Bundle now outpaces this thing. So you really do kind of need the priority speed control, because Electi is no longer the fastest non-priority option here. But Transistor plus Terra will make this thing objectively really good. S+. Regidrago. This thing will get a B tier. I'm actually putting this thing at the top of B tier. Regidrago is just able to Terra out of its one bad thing, which was the fact that it could not hit fairies, and go for like a Terra Steel set, which will be really good on Trick Room. Also, Terra Dragon and just leaning into the Draco energy on Trick Room or Tailwind will be kind of cool, but the base 80 speed is kind of whatever for both, but it's good enough to make it work. Objectively, this will be a cool B tier mon, really good breaker, I think, in my opinion, but we'll have to see how this goes. Weird Ear will be interesting. I still think this is a solid C tier Intimidate mon. I'm going to put it right above Tornado Asterion. This will be kind of interesting with Trick Room at the very least. It has some good support, but it's just kind of lackluster stat-wise. Cleavor will be just a worse version of Hisuian Samurott, I think. Realistically, the rocks will not be as important. Actually, there's a lot of fire types. There's a lot of fire and flying types in VGC. This could maybe actually be slightly better. However, I think that the typing and the stabs are going to be a lot worse, though maybe like a Cleavor Sand could be interesting. Or even, yeah, Cleavor Sand could actually be pretty cool. Same as a Cleavor on Tailwind. Specifically, I think you're going to need to go for like a Terra Fighting or like a Terra Ground set just to handle steals a little bit better with your stabs. I know it does get close combat, but even still, I stand by that point. Regardless though, definite B tier. Sharpness boost will be really cool for Stone Axe, so you don't need to run Sheer Force and get rid of your Stone Axe dropping hazards. This will be a cool option. Objective B tier. Moving on, we do have Sneasler. Sneasler I've heard is actually going to be really good, and I'm glad because I did have a lot of faith in Spawn. I think that Zapdos Galar will be slightly better than this, just because of the fact that it can take advantage of Intimidate mons, but at the same time, though, the ability to pop and burn him with like a Psychic Terrain, or even just go for Poison Touch sets could be pretty good. The typing and stabs are going to be really good. The offensive pressure this provides will be really good with 130 in the offenses. Terra Dark will be nuts in this thing, and I think the Scope Lens sets with Night Slash, or like a Life Orb set, or even like a normal gem Fake Out, could be really good. All really good options. Objective A tier mon. Moving on to Enamoris, we have two forms here. They're both going to be pretty good. We'll start with Therian. This thing can get a solid B tier. We'll put it right above Cleavor at the very least. Actually, right above Lone Muck. This thing will be a cool Assault Sponge with stuff like Draining Kiss, Springtide Storm, Mystical Fire, and Earth Power being really good options here. Meanwhile, for Enamoris Incarnate, at the very least, I'm going to put this thing in the S+ tier. This thing will go right below Landorus Therian, actually. I think that the Intimidate option to take advantage with Contrary, as well as the Q-Charm to take advantage of special sets, will both be filthy in this Pokemon. And it's such incredible versatility. I put this up there with like Mousehold as levels of versatility. Actually, probably way above Mousehold. I take that back. Because realistically, both abilities have extremely different counterplay. Because for physical options, you cannot actually intimidate it even. You would have to burn it. And a Terra Fire set with Contrary could actually be nearly unkillable, with like specifically Terra Blast, Play Rough, and then going for like Protect and then Filler. You would be pretty hard to counter. You just can't Wisp it like other physical attackers. You cannot intimidate it like other physical attackers. You would have to go for Haze. And even still, Haze wouldn't really matter because this thing will still be really good. You also get Superpower, which is kind of broken. Like Superpower, Terra Blast, Play Rough, and also Protect. Like that's all Enamoris actually needs, and this thing will actually be kind of a monster. So objectively, this is an S+ for sure. It's arguably even better than Landorus, but I don't know if I confidently can say that. Moving on, we do have Overquill. Pretty cool Rain option, pretty cool Intimidate mon. I think objectively this will be an interesting gimmick mon. It's going to be slightly below Quillfish Sui just because this thing has a lot better defensive calcs. Bastia Legion Time. Both of these are going to get in the S tier. However, at the same time, actually no, Basket Cajun Female will get the A tier. I'm going to put it right below Charizard just because the fact that you do kind of have to run a plus speed nature for this to be viable, but it will objectively be good with that. Basket Legion though can get at least above Palkia Origin. I think this will be a little bit easier to counter than everyone says it will be. It's not going to be a true monster until Kyogre meta happens, and even still, Last Respects is not as good in doubles as it is in singles because you can only peak at 150. However, at the same time, though, you can still make this thing to a really good adaptability breaker or a really good swim breaker, and both will be pretty terrifying. Ghost Water is a really good offensive typing as well. This is at least an S tier for sure. I think at Glacier, Trick Room will be a little more consistent. Cresselia is just better support, and like these are just outright monsters. Basket Legion is still one in its own right, just a little bit less consistent. Ursaluna, also an S tier. I've actually changed my mind on this. This actually can get an S plus. We'll put this thing at the no, I'll put this at least above Zacian, mostly because of the opportunity cost here, truthfully, because you always just run this one. But at the very least, I take that back. I'm putting this in an S plus solely because I think a clear amulet could actually be a thing on this, specifically to not lose your Intrepid Sword. That could actually be a reason to run this in this format because you would finally lead Zacian base again. I feel like that's going to be a thing. I don't know 100%, but regardless, it's an S plus. The damage on this thing is insane. Sword Stance will literally OHKO everything with Terra Normal. You could also just go with a lot of coverage, stuff like Headlong Rush, Close Combat, etc. Like this thing is fucking gross. Trick Room, this will be really redefining Trick Room, and I think that deserves an S plus alone. It's one of the weakest S pluses in my opinion, because none of these are really going to be playstyle dependent. Even Calyrex Ice can just take advantage of its own Trick Room at least. This thing does rely on a lot of support, but it's fucking gross. It's so fucking gross. Finally, I have two other Pokemon. These are not transfer Pokemon from home, but they're going to be probably included in the same metagame. Walking Wake, first up. This thing can get an S+. This thing is kind of fucking broken. This is actually the first tier list we've had Walking Wake on. I think that at the very least, these genies will probably be a little bit better than it. Walking Wake will be kind of nuts, though, at the very least with stuff like, for example, the Hydro Steam will be really good on Sun and Rain. Actually, no, I take that back. Walking Wake might be the only Pokemon here that's not a restricted to get the S++. This thing will be really good at taking advantage of both Groudon and Kyogre support. The fact that you also have booster energy for the Groudon stats, you also have like Tailwind or even just Icy Wind, like bundle Kyogre Rain, could be really gross in this Pokemon. You have Terra Fire to get around weaknesses to bundle, and on top of that as well, Terra Steel, just if you want to keep the non-weakness to water as well with that. This will be such a gross mon. I think objectively this will truly redefine how every team needs to build around it, just because of how good Walking Wake will be. Like this will be like, I think this will be the Incineroar of its format, to be completely honest. Not in the same roles that it does, but in how fucking central it will be. It's going to overtake, I think it will at least rival, if not overtake, Fluttermane in that regard for doubles. Iron Leaves, finally, this will be an A tier. At least putting it above the Zamazentas. Yeah, I feel confident above the Zamazentas. I even actually feel confident in putting this above Charizard. This will be kind of cool. I think this will be kind of an okay option on Electric Train teams as well as on Tailwind teams. It's just going to always be overlooked by Walking Wake because they're a duo, but it's actually got a lot to offer. Terra Fighting Sense will be really cool with stuff like Psyblade, Leaf Blade, and then like Sacred Sword and Protect. It'll be an objectively usable mon, but it will just be overlooked because of Walking Wake being its counterpart. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this tier list though. If you did, leave a like below and subscribe. Shout out to Kurt for editing this behemoth of a video. I'm so sorry, Kurt. I promise I'll stop sending you really big monolith videos. At least this one was simple to edit. With that said, though, shout out to our channel members, of course, being Josh K, Ultra Player, Mia, Zeke Zero, Bbat, Onatapur, Timo Mueller, Ponzi, Bam Bambi, Frau Plays, Obo, and Johannes B. If you guys are looking forward to the members video on Saturday, make sure, of course, you become a channel member today for only a couple dollars a month. You get some bonus content, as well as make sure you join soon because we will be holding our next Pokemon guide for the members videos or the Pokemon like history run. So, of course, join for that. And with that said, we'll see you guys on Friday with our first Pokemon Home post-meta battle. Until then, peace out, guys.